Let's begin.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us on this night, Erev Yom HaShoah. We know that there are many events across the state to honor this sacred time of Holocaust remembrance. It is only because of the urgency of what is happening at Rutgers, our state university, that we have carved out 45 minutes to bring the statewide Jewish community together. I'm Linda Scherzer, Director of the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council of the Jewish Federation of Greater MetroWest. We have many, many people on this webinar from across our 4.5 counties, but as this is an issue that deeply concerns Jews across the state of New Jersey, parents and grandparents of Rutgers students, alumni, faculty, other vested stakeholders, and of course, all of us who are New Jersey taxpayers, we have invited our colleagues and their constituents from all 5 of the state's largest Jewish federations. The situation that has erupted on college campuses across the country is, of course, deeply, deeply disturbing. When free speech becomes hate speech, when the First Amendment is weaponized to allow students and outside agitators to declare their support for terrorist organizations, call for genocide and dismantling of the Jewish state, we must act. Many of us, though, have been so focused on the worst of what's happening nationally at schools like Columbia and UCLA that we are somewhat unaware that at our own state university last week, after months of intimidation of Jewish students by pro-Hamas demonstrators, after disruptions in classrooms and buildings, after hundreds, if not thousands of students camped out on Voorhees Mall, leading to the cancellation of the first round of final exams, the university conducted negotiations with these protesters that led to nothing short of shameful capitulation to a mob. These were the scenes at the university as recorded by reporters from the Targum, the student newspaper, these last few days. And these, coming up now, are 4 of the 8 demands allegedly agreed to by the president and the chancellor. Although, to be honest, there is still some confusion as to what exactly the university will do. These are demands that were allegedly made and met by the university. The only 2 demands the university apparently did not agree to was to sever its connection with Tel Aviv University or agree to divest from companies in its portfolio that do business in the state of Israel. And I do know that the hiring of additional professors specializing in Palestine studies and Middle East studies, that demand is apparently under consideration. Now, before I invite our 2 panelists for reaction and before we discuss the action steps ahead, we're going to play for you the testimony that Rutgers student Joe Gindi delivered to a Congressional House committee just 2 months ago, describing what Jewish students have endured at our state university.
Joe, you're recognized.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Joe J. Gindi. I'm 21 years old, from Brooklyn, New York, a Syrian Jew and a sophomore at Rutgers University. I would like to thank the chair and the committee for hosting this important roundtable today. I am here today because Jew hatred has become rampant at Rutgers University, and it has become clear that some members of the school's administration and faculty are complicit in allowing and even in encouraging this hate to grow. I'm here today in the hope that my remarks will be a catalyst for action so that Jewish students like myself feel safe and welcome at Rutgers, not harassed, threatened, and invisible. I'm here today to say, it is time to wake up, America, and understand what is happening on our college campuses. In the interest of time, I'll share only a few examples of what we've experienced. On November 17th, the Students for Justice in Palestine stormed the Rutgers University College Avenue Student Center and took it over. I was standing outside of the Student Center. I was called a murderer, People screamed at me, "We don't want Zionists here." They called me a European colonizer because I am Jewish. Ironic, since my family came to America from Aleppo, Halab, Syria. Jewish students caught inside of the student center were forced to flee. I was horrified, but what shocked me the most was the reaction of the police officers and administrators at the scene. At the direction of officials from the school administration, police on the scene did nothing, allowing SJP to march in and take over the student center. On November 27th, SJP overran the business school, chanting, disrupting classes, and turning the building into an area where Jews were afraid to enter. This was, again, another clear violation of the code of conduct. Jewish students were afraid to leave their classrooms, and numerous faculty members reported being terrified of this mob. Most egregiously, Rutgers administrators facilitated this, literally opening the door for agitators to enter the building. But there are some Rutgers staff who are more obvious with their Jew hatred. At one rally, a Rutgers University program coordinator screamed at Jewish students, and I apologize for the profanity, fuck you, colonizer, fuck you, Zionist." The actions of these staff members effectively denied Jewish students equal access to campus resources, and many students, like myself, do not feel safe reaching out for help. Justice requires the equal application of the law. So too, the code of conduct can only protect all students if the university enforces the rules equally. Unfortunately, at Rutgers University, like at many other campuses, there appears to be a selective enforcement of these rules. They just don't seem to apply when it comes to Jewish students. There's so much more that I can share. I didn't come to college to study in a living laboratory of anti-Semitism, which is what Rutgers has become. Jews at Rutgers are afraid. It feels like we've lost all support lines and don't know where to go. I'm here today to ask you, our United States lawmakers, for your help. Thank you.
So I've heard that testimony and the testimony of other students at that congressional roundtable several times. It is just so incredibly painful for me to hear what you and your fellow students are going through, Joe, and I applaud you for having the courage to stand up at your university and to speak your truth to the members of the House Committee on Education and Workforce, Virginia Fox's committee. Later in this webinar, we're going to share with all of you on this webinar what our 5 federations will be doing and launching in the days ahead to make our voices heard to Rutgers administration, its board of governors, and to our state legislators in Trenton. Right now, however, I'd like to introduce Rutgers Hillel CEO, my friend Lisa Harris-Glass, and Rutgers sophomore Joe Gindi in his room somewhere, I believe in New Brunswick or thereabouts, studying for finals. These are 2 incredible Jewish leaders driving the Jewish response at Rutgers. They are here to answer some questions. I'm going to lead it off. Those of you who have questions, please put them in chat. We have over 700 people on our webinar. We'll only be able to get, unfortunately, to a few of them, but we will do our best to hit all the important ones that our panelists need to answer. So first, Joe, in light of all that you shared with the Congressional Committee at the end of February, what is your reaction to the news last week that the university surrendered or allegedly surrendered to most of the protesters' demands?
Thank you, Linda, and thank you for having this important webinar. Like you said, it's a busy time. I'm studying for my finals, and this isn't something that any of us wanted. I've never been more disappointed with the administration before. I've tried working with the administration. I sit on the Chancellor's Advisory Council for Jewish Life, and I'm disappointed in the work that we haven't been able to accomplish. Since my testimony back in February, I thought things would get better. I thought we'd heal our campus. I thought Rutgers would be in a better place. It isn't. We're in a far worse situation than we ever could have imagined. The targeted harassment of Jews in the classroom, on the streets, in their dormitories has become normalized at Rutgers. I don't know where else to turn. like I said in my testimony, it feels like we've lost all support lines. At this point, the administration has totally cut us off. We were cut out of the deal. They didn't even acknowledge us. We were only told after the fact what was being offered. And in that, we lost so much. The administration capitulated to this mob that didn't allow me to have my finals where they were scheduled to be. My final had to be moved to another building. And these are the people who celebrate terrorism, the people who spray paint images of Layla Khalid all over our campus. These are PFLP terrorists. These are the people that are negotiating and now dictating university policy. So I just thank you, Linda, for having this important webinar tonight.
Joe, I mean, it's words fail me. I'm sure to a large degree they fail you too, Lisa. I mean, I'm plugged into what's going on campuses all over the country. It grieves me to say that what I'm hearing from Joe sounds like that our state institution is one of the worst state institutions, public institutions in the country. So I turn to you. Have you heard from the administration? Do you get support from the administration? Were you advised in advance what their decisions were going to be? What can you tell us about the mood and the climate, how students are feeling? Lisa.
Oh, okay. So again, I'm going to echo my gratitude for you convening this really important conversation. And I'm watching the numbers of participants climb to over 910 participants. And I want to thank all of you for being here because we need your help. We need to stand up for what's right and for justice. And there has been no justice at the university. So when you asked about support from university administration, I will tell you, I feel incredibly unsupported. I and many others have tried to work through the university systems and processes, like going through channels, if you will, and it does nothing. And there's a group on campus called JFAS, which is Jewish Faculty Administration and Support. I'm not a formal member, but I'm sort of like an ex officio member. And I know that they were trying so hard to work with the administration. As far back as December, they had been asking for things like an accounting of recent anti-Semitic acts on our campus. It didn't happen. Clarifying and enforcing the codes of conduct and ethics. I can tell you there have been many times where we have said, is the sidewalk public or isn't the sidewalk public? You know, just trying to figure out what's a violation of the rules, what isn't a violation of the rules, what's allowed. And that shouldn't be a moving target, but it has continued to be a moving target. To ask that they suspend students and student organizations who members repeatedly violate the code of conduct. Now, you may remember there was about a 3-day suspension of SJP in December. It might have been longer, but whatever it was took place over the break because when we got back to school, they were also back and operating. We asked the university to condemn instances of anti-Semitic speech and actions. Those are crickets you hear chirping.
So this is just astoundingly, even though I've heard you speak before, it's still astoundingly shocking. I mean, you must put to the administration, you must ask them, how is it that students are continually allowed to breach university policy, to violate the codes of behavior? What is their answer?
They do not answer when we ask these questions, or they obfuscate. And frankly, with what just took place this past week on campus, that encampment was, first of all, it violated in big ways at least 3 of the policies regarding protest on campus. One is that you actually can't camp out. It says no overnight camping. In their own policy, it says that you can only protest in the designated area on each campus. Now on Rutgers, on College Avenue campus, that's at the Broward Commons and is certainly not on Voorhees Mall, which is surrounded by academic buildings, and that you cannot use amplified sound. And so as Wednesday, I guess, actually sent a kind of desperate communication to President Holloway and Chancellor Conway, because I was so worried that our students would not be able to access finals because they were afraid to walk through the group, and also that there would be amplified sound, which it's not conducive to taking a test when that's going on in the background.
Clearly.
And I was informed that they were negotiating with the marshals. Like, the encampment had its own marshals. I don't know about this. And then later on, very late at night, found out that they were calling for people to come and get really loud at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is why the morning finals were postponed. But it seems to me, we talk about capitulation. I keep coming back to the word extortion. They held the university hostage, held the university operations hostage to get what they want, and then the administration capitulated. And I think it's shameful.
Is there a sense that the administration has picked a side? I put that to both of you. Have they picked a side in this conflict? I mean, I think we all understands and support the core fundamental American value of the right to assemble, the right to free speech. But if you have been ignored the way that the administration has been ignoring you, if they have been allowed to continually violate these codes of behavior, I mean, would you go so far to say that they appear to have picked a side, or the loudest voices win?
Yes. So from my perspective, from being a student here, it definitely feels like the administration has chosen a side. SJP has gone on for months, harassing students, targeting students, interrupting events hosted by Jewish organizations, interrupting events where the president had to be ushered out and Jewish students were caught in the room. And they're still not suspended. This is an organization receiving money from the university, a state-funded university, that has basically taken over. They were allowed to delay finals. An organization that did that is still not suspended. The weekend's almost over, and they're still a group on campus being paid for by our state funds. Maybe it's a double standard, but it certainly does feel like one.
So let me ask you. Let me turn, if I can, to faculty support. I mean, I have always said that, as disturbing as it is to see what's happening on the College Green, on Voorhees Mall, on College Avenue, these are public events. They're in our face, but I tend to be more concerned about what's happening inside the classroom, the years of indoctrination that we have learned, has been going on for the last 2 decades, the ways that has been funded by overseas money. But let me ask you about faculty support. First of all, I'm assuming there are Jewish faculty who are there to support our students. Conversely, how concerned are you about faculty who also are taking sides, who are standing, in some cases, actually standing with these demonstrators at their encampments? Do you see that happening here?
I mean, we absolutely see faculty supporting and aiding the cause of, well, I'll just leave it at the cause. In fact, the faculty union actually did come out in support of, not only in support of Gaza, but really in calling Israel colonialist and settler, and, calling very, very strongly. And in fact, that when it was approaching the time for the dismantling of the encampment, there was sort of an action alert that went out, I understand, from the faculty union, calling on members of the faculty to bodily surround the tent encampment in case it had to be forcibly dismantled. So, not to mention how many times teachers allowed for speech, vote for BDS speeches when that was coming up with the student government in the classroom, when we had class chats on WhatsApp being co-opted by people for, who were promoting the cause. It has completely interrupted academia. And I also, we have students who say to me, I don't want to be public about how bad this makes me feel, or that I'm pro-Israel because I'm afraid that it's going to affect my grade in my major.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the fact that faculty is given amnesty from the goings on of this past week is absolutely outrageous. It is outrageous.
Right. I want to highlight that what we saw at the encampment was not a anti-war movement. It was not a pro-peace movement. These are people who call for a violent intifada, and we're seeing them being supported by our faculty. It's unbelievable that these people are granted full amnesty. I mean, in the memorandum of understanding, that's a point that's clearly highlighted by the university, that faculty at the encampment are given amnesty for this, for the horrible signs. Rule number 1 for the encampment: no Zionists. I couldn't attend one of my finals. It had to be moved. I mean, these are what the faculty are supporting. It's disappointing, to say the least.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're shouting things like, go back to Poland. Go back
Yeah.
to Poland. I had 4 grandparents who were born in the United States. And I know I have students who have 8 great-grandparents who were all born in the United States. Go back to Poland?
Yeah.
Not from Poland.
Yeah. No, these are these just absolutely horrible calls and declarations, which absolutely need to be condemned. I mean, this, as I said earlier, goes beyond the bounds of civil discourse, decent civil discourse, and veers into hate speech, and certainly calls for genocide. And going back to Poland, there have been a number of questions about have we heard from the governor? I know what my answer is. Well, Lisa, I'm gonna turn to you, Joe. If you've heard from the governor or any of our federal elected representatives, please do let us know.
Joe,
So-
you go first.
Sure, thank you. There have been a number of really incredible officials that have come out and stood proud with the Jewish students at Rutgers. Just to name a few: Representative Gottheimer, Representative Richie Torres, both Democrats, and both have been incredible supporters of the Jewish people in our time of need. I worked for the governor for 6 months in the Legislative Affairs Department, and since October 7th, and since things at Rutgers took a turn for the worst, I haven't heard anything. At least that's from my perspective.
Mhm.
Yes. And I mean, I will say, the governor has been shamefully silent. And when we think that the law is being broken and that civil rights are being violated, and we're trying to escalate those things, and we receive absolute silence from the highest ranking politician in our state, it's just, I don't even have the right word for how heartbreaking it is, how frustrating it is. You almost can't believe that this is happening. I do also want to say, though, I mean, there have been people on the state who, politicians who've been really great to us. Gary Scher, Assemblywoman Rosie Bagoli, Linda Greenstein, Tom Keene Jr. has been helping us. And that's just to name a few. Jeff Grazel, I could go on, but I don't know where Murphy has been. We haven't heard a word from Cory Booker. Where's their outrage? Where's their indignation for what is being endured by Jewish students and Israeli students on not just even Rutgers, but college campuses in New Jersey, which they're supposed to care about? It's unconscionable. It's unconscionable.
Yeah. So I do want to let our viewers know that the federations have been in contact with the governor's office. We are in continuing conversation with the governor's office. We communicate these concerns. We will certainly take what I'm reading in the chat and what I'm hearing from Lisa and Joe to the governor's office tomorrow, because I have said for months now that our governor, frankly, should be doing what we saw in the neighboring state of New York. Governor should be coming. I believe he should be standing at Hillel with student leaders like Joe and Lisa, and saying that what we are seeing today, we protect free speech. This is still the United States of America, but this is simply unacceptable. And you can be sure that we'll be making that call tomorrow. So we have well over 70 or 80 questions here. There are parents who are asking, Their child was accepted to Rutgers for the fall of 2025. What should they do? Other parents have children who are going to be applying to college next fall. What should they do? Should they be avoiding sending in an application to their state university? Should they be rethinking the schools that they are applying to based on what they're seeing happening?
So I also was reading the questions and I saw that, and I've been fielding that question for months. I think, number one, if we stop showing up at our state university, which is our right, we've lost, right? We have a right to be here, and we should be exercising that right. Now, is it easy every day? No, but there we have students who will report to you that they feel nothing, that it hasn't affected them at all, especially if they don't live on College Avenue campus, because this mostly happens on College Avenue campus, on the main campus. And so it doesn't. So they just go on and live their lives. But I would say that if you are a parent with a student coming, or with a student who's going to be looking and applying, I would urge you to make sure that there is a strong Jewish infrastructure wherever your child is going to land, because when they need a place to go, you want them to have some place to go. And I will tell you that that has been our major purpose this year. You know, by at the end of this semester, which is this coming Wednesday, we will have had over 18,000 student engagements this academic year. That's a 30% increase over last year, because students need a place to go. And so I'm a parent, I've got two. I think it's really important to make sure that you send them where they have a place to go.
Absolutely. Is there any concern? I believe commencement is scheduled for next Sunday, Mother's Day. Any concerns about possible protests at commencement?
So I can answer this. I had a phone call earlier today with a Jewish professor talking about the deal. Rightfully so, we're all horrified and upset that the administration cut this deal, but it's on the condition that there are no further disruptions. Knowing the constituency of SJP, there are going to be more disruptions. The university doesn't understand the organization they're working with. They don't understand that this organization made a move that's not even in the interest of what their constituents want. The top 5 or 10 posts on SJP's most recent post on Instagram all call on them for, they call on the leaders of SJP to resign for cutting this deal. I can guarantee you there are going to be interruptions at commencement. I can guarantee the administration that this will not go smoothly. They did not understand that this isn't something that they're able to control with deals. There's going to be interruptions.
What is it that Golda Meir always said? You can't negotiate with people who want to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that disruptions for the class of 2024, which many of whom didn't have a graduation at high school, right? And now we're dealing with the possibility of disruptions at their college graduations are very disturbing. There's a lot of questions about what we are going to be doing, the action items, the initiatives that we're going to be advancing in the days ahead. And I'll get to that before probably in the next 5 minutes. I do want to give a shout out to students who attend Rutgers Newark. We have long been aware that that campus, which has a very, very tiny Jewish population, has been dealing with intimidation and harassment at that campus. It doesn't get the same kind of attention just because the Jewish population is so tiny, but we have been supporting these students. We have been lobbying for these students. Ironically, we were in President Holloway's office with Assemblyman Scher just a year ago, talking about our concerns, and we do feel that to some degree they were addressed. I won't go into it on this call, but I do want to recognize that that they have been dealing with this for at least as long as I've been with Federation. So before we talk about what it is that the 5 largest Jewish federations in this state will be advocating for in the days ahead, I wanted to ask Lisa and Joe, what do you think that our statewide Jewish community should be doing? We are close to 1,000 people on this call, over 950. That's a pretty big audience. These are people who are vested stakeholders who care deeply about reversing what was agreed to and about creating a just climate, an environment for all students, regardless of their religious backgrounds, their national backgrounds, their ethnic backgrounds, that diversity and inclusion should apply to all students, and that the situation that you are facing must not continue next fall, because there is no expectation that what's happening in Israel is going to, that the flame is going to be lowered in the weeks or months ahead. We know that Israel is facing enormous challenges on its border in the north. There are still over 100 hostages being held in Gaza. And so while students will be heading home for the summer, they'll be coming back in the fall. What would you like our community to be doing in the days ahead, Lisa and Joe?
Joe, would you like to go first?
Sure, thank you, Lisa. A question that a lot of administrators and professors I've heard debate on is, why do people outside of the university care? Why is it their business what's going on? Well, I can answer that today. This is a state university. All of your taxes are going to funding this. The mess that is erupting at Rutgers and has erupted at Rutgers was funded by the university. SJP was not suspended at the time of the encampment and remains unsuspended today. This is a funded problem by our tax dollars. That's why it's relevant. And what could we do? I mean, it's state university. Our state politicians, our local politicians, even our federal politicians all need to understand that we're concerned about this. Call them, write to them. And if you know them, talk to them. Make them understand what we're dealing with is endemic and we need it to stop.
Yeah. Well said, Joe. And I would add to that, we're coming into primary season, but, elections are right behind that. And when you go to vote, I want you to think about what you've heard from that politician regarding what's been happening on our college campuses and to Jewish people. And if you can't remember them saying anything, I suggest that should be informative to you. Second, there are two bills that are coming before the New Jersey Senate in committee. We will have a chance to address the committee in Trenton on May 16th. These two bills, one is the state adopting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, called IRA, the H is silent. And the second one is for the mandatory inclusion of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in all diversity, equity, and inclusion in the state. And the purpose of this call and what we've been talking about is what's been happening on college campuses. But the truth is, this is happening all over education. It's happening in public schools, in high schools, in towns all over the state of New Jersey. And as Joe, to borrow Joe's word, it is endemic. And so we need help. And we feel like, listen, we the whole time keep thinking that we can work through channels and abide by the law, and that the people who need to enforce the law will enforce the law. This would help give us teeth for getting that done. But of course, then it all has to be enforced. But if we care about these things getting passed, we have to show up in numbers. It is critical because there is great opposition to the passing of these two bills. And those who oppose it will be there in numbers. And we need to have more.
100%. I expect that there will be pitched battles outside the State House on May 16th and possibly inside the hearing room. Very emotional and charged testimony, and we are going to be calling for our constituents to show up on that day. I'm going to mention that in my closing remarks, but I mean, so much more to say. I want to release Joe so that he's able to study for his finals, and do exactly what college students are supposed to be doing, right? studying for
Yep.
finals, preparing for summer internships, moving out of their dorm rooms, all the things that that students have done, every year, at least until this year, when they've had to, stand up in the ways that that Joe has and others have stood up to lead the community and to make our case. And so I want to thank him. I want to thank Joe and Lisa for being with us here today. And I want to applaud you on behalf of all of us for your incredible leadership. I want you to know that the 5 federations that are represented here tonight, Northern New Jersey, South Jersey, Heart of New Jersey, Somerset, Hunterdon, and Warren counties, and my federation, the Jewish Federation of Greater MetroWest, all of us stand shoulder to shoulder with you during these very difficult days. And we will be launching several important public actions in the days ahead. First, we will be calling on the Jewish community to sign 2 letters, one to the state Senate President and Assembly Speaker, calling for an investigation into the negotiation at Rutgers and the shameful capitulation to protesters. There will also be a second letter to President Jonathan Holloway and Chancellor Conway that are going to be asking them to revoke what this agreement, or to resign immediately. So please be on the lookout for those letters, which we will be sending out, and we'll be asking you to copy, paste, and forward in very large numbers. We hope that there will be thousands of those letters sent to the president and to the chancellor in the days ahead. Second, again, as Lisa told you, on May 16th, the New Jersey Senate State Government Committee will be considering 2 critically important bills to combat anti-Semitism. We are asking you to join us that day in Trenton in a strong show of support for passage of the legislation. Finally, we'll be working with our student leaders like Joe and others, with community representatives and allies, to plan a large community rally at Rutgers in the near future, possibly within the next week or two, to articulate our pain and our outrage. So please be on the lookout for these letters and the action alerts for us, from us and your respective federations. Please know that our security teams are out there providing security for Hillel and for our Jewish institutions, all Jewish institutions, to make sure that our community stays safe. We are here for you and for your children, so please continue to be in touch with us, to share information, to help us help you and our Hillels and our students wherever they go to school. Joe, best of luck with finals. Thank you for your leadership. Lisa, you are an incredible force for good. We are all so lucky to have you leading our Hillel at Rutgers. To all of you who joined us tonight, thank you and good night.